Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina, and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator for Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up is a part of the Info Exchange Group. Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar Tips and Tools to Support Your Not-for-Profit Organisation in Transitioning to Working from Home, which will be presented by Eric Jenkins from Connecting Up. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel and I'll be able to assist you through there. If you have any questions during the session, please also type it in the questions box and Eric will answer them in the Q&A section. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you as soon as we have uploaded it. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate it if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. That's all from me for now. I'll hand it over to Eric to get things started. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you very much, Tina. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all having a pretty good day, or at least as good as days get at the moment, in the comfort of probably working from your own home, as I'd imagine, which is, of course, the topic of today's webinar. So we've had quite a lot of feedback over the past couple of weeks as we've tried to deliver content around transitioning to remote working, as so many of us are doing now. But we keep getting feedback that people would like more information and a bit of a better overview of what products specifically are available through Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand and the broader TechSoup network to help support you in your mission and working from home. So that's pretty much the topic of today's webinar. So I'll go over the contents quickly, but just very briefly. Hello, this is me. So I've been with Connecting Up for, almost 5 years now. It's been quite a while. There's a bit of a admittedly somewhat older photo of myself. I've aged a little bit since then, but I have been with us for a long time. I've worked in our customer support team for a couple of years. I've currently been in the business development team as our account manager for a few years now, and I've worked in pretty much every program across Connecting Up to some capacity or another. So I've got a pretty good idea of pretty much everything that's going on here, and I do tend to know our products pretty well, which is why I'm speaking today. So without further ado, what I'll be covering is I'll be covering some of the major remote work resources available through Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. There are some really popular ones that we're getting a lot of questions about that are really focused on team collaboration and teamwork. So I'll be talking about those. I'll be doing a bit of a live demo on my actual work from home setup because I did have a bit of an interesting time transitioning myself. There will be Q&A. Now, as it turns out, I can actually see the questions as they come through. So if you have got questions, please feel free to ask them at any point during the webinar. If there is a good point for me to pause, I'll take that and try and tackle the question if it's relevant. Otherwise, we'll handle those at the end. I've also got links to a lot of further resources that we've got out on the website, as well as upcoming webinars that are related very much to COVID-19 that you'll probably be quite interested in, which again, pretty much focus on making the best of the current situation. Now the slide deck, I'll cover this off the bat, is going to be sent out to you later. Once we're done with the webinar, I'll try and save that as a PDF so we can email that to you hopefully this afternoon so you can get your hands on this as soon as possible, because there are going to be a number of links in here. So yeah, we tend to get asked that a lot. So you will be getting the slide deck, and hopefully it won't be too long after this is all covered. There will also be a recording up on the website. That'll probably take a little bit longer. We do have to upload the video, and as you can imagine, with some of the home internet that we've got, that's a little bit more fun than with the fiber network we've got at the office. So let's hop into some of the major resources you can get through Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand, starting with probably the biggest one here, which we get asked about all the time, which is Office 365 and Microsoft 365. So one of the biggest tools, or one of the biggest advantages you can give yourself when you're working remotely, is cloud computing software, and Microsoft have a very comprehensive cloud suite. So Office 365 is not the only cloud suite out there. We'll be covering some others as well, but it is probably one of the most well-known ones, especially because it can optionally include some of those Office applications. So Office 365, it is a massive beast. I won't go into all of the details here, but at a short level, you're looking at things like being able to handle your email online. You can handle online Office applications, excuse me there. You can collaborate with your team through Microsoft Teams, and that includes things like instant messaging, video and conference calls. You can share files through Teams. You can also do that through SharePoint Online and a document library. You can start conversations and have more Facebook style methods of communicating. It really is a very powerful tool, and I'm really only scratching the surface there. I've mentioned some of the document management stuff through SharePoint and OneDrive. You're also looking at things like insights and analytics through Power BI. Office 365 is very comprehensive. Some of the other plans do include the ability to get the latest desktop applications installed on your PC, which actually I'll be showing off. I've done that myself. For a lot of not-for-profits, they've already made the move to the cloud, but there are so many that are making the leap now because there's really never been a better time. I know so many not-for-profits are still, even now, they're using different email systems. They might have their email, say, with Google. They might have their email maybe just using personal email with Yahoo. So they're looking to make the move to hosted email with Office 365, get that branded domain name that they've got set up with their website, get some professional looking email, and manage that on an organizational level. That's something Office 365 can let you do. For other not-for-profits, we've been speaking, and the email part's been handled fine, but it's files. So perhaps they've had like a NAS, a network attached storage, or a local file server in their office, and that's where they've been storing their files. Some have even just been keeping on an external hard drive or a thumb drive or something like that. Suddenly, now that you're not all in the office, that's not the best way to share files anymore. So they're looking to share files again. So again, that's where you'd look at something like SharePoint Online, being able to have a document library, share your files, collaborate on your files as needed. It can just make things so much easier. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, video and web conferencing through Microsoft Teams, which I'll pick up on a bit later as well, can be a really powerful tool for not just speaking with your own internal staff members and clients, but also external stakeholders as well. So you can invite guests, have meetings with them. It really is a very, very broad set of, I guess, applications there. Like I said, I've not really done it justice, but it is a very comprehensive cloud suite. You can move a lot of your business applications over. You can run a lot of things through Office 365. And if you were running any of that on premise, same with like your Office desktop applications, this is a really good way of being able to get licensing to be able to run them on multiple machines so that you can use them on multiple devices like a laptop, which you may be working from home now, that might be separate to your home PC. It may be that you're totally working from your home PC now and you need to access a lot of not just these applications, but these files. Again, this is where Office 365 can help. It can go, like I said, it can get complicated really quickly. I'm trying to do a bit of a quick overview here. I don't think I've done it total justice, but if you have got questions about Office 365, feel free to ask now. You can also click through in the link. We do have consultations available. People can speak to you about it more. If you're interested in moving to Office 365, please chat with us. We can help work out what it is that you need to accomplish. We can help work out the right licensing for you, which is not something I'll get into now. There's a lot of different licenses, but there are free licenses available. If you've got 10 or less staff, there are donated licenses that will give you pretty much everything you need. If you've got more than 10 staff or you have very basic requirements, there's a lot of good free licenses you can get as well. You can get really far with Office 365 without having to invest anything other than time, which is something that a lot of people have to spend right now anyways. So look, I'd highly recommend it. I will do a demo on Office 365 because we're using that ourselves. That is part of our technology setup here. So I'll do a more in-depth demo so people have a better idea on what it looks like and what some of the things you can do. But that is probably one of the big names out there, and I just wanted to highlight that. The next one that is probably on a lot of people's minds right now, as it's in the news sometimes for the good reasons, sometimes not so good reasons, is Zoom. So Zoom is it's meeting software, really. It's a video conferencing, it's presentations, it's webinars. It is instant messaging and chat as well, but by and large, the main big ticket feature really is the video conferencing and meetings function. That's pretty much what Zoom is. That's what Zoom does. The good thing is Zoom does that really well, and really simply. Zoom is extremely simple to use. Again, this is part of the technology setup that we use here, so I'll give a little bit of an overview of it as well. We've been using it for several years. It is the power of Zoom, like I said, is it is very simple to use. It's very easy to use yourself. It's easy to invite external users. You can password protect those meetings. So some of the stuff you've seen on the news about people bombing conferences, what do they call it? Zoom bomb, I think. You can avoid some of that by being careful who you're sharing your link with and protecting your meetings appropriately. It would be remiss of me not to mention that there was a major security update for Zoom that's also gone out as well to fix some of the security flaws that have been happening that were identified in the last week or so. But Zoom is one of the big names out there. There is an offer through the Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand site that you can get. Basically, you're paying an administration fee and then you get 50% off of Zoom current rates. It's a pretty good offer if you're looking for 2 or more host licenses. If you're only looking for 1 host license, I probably wouldn't recommend it. So keep that in mind. We have got links to some tables that show out pricing, so you can have a bit of a look and see how much you might be saving. It is worth having a look at Zoom though. I mean, you can start off with a trial license, and I'll cover some other video conferencing software as well, but Zoom is simple. It is easy to use. We have had a question on, I've heard some horror stories in security with Zoom. What are your thoughts on this? So some of the security, there's probably a few things to think of. Some of the risk, I think, is on users perhaps not managing how they're sharing their meetings as well as they could be. You do join Zoom meetings typically even as an external user with like a web link where you can join via the client or your web browser. If you're not careful with who's sharing that link, yes, you could get people that are not intended to join the meeting joining the meeting. Likewise, you might have people trying to just guess your meeting IDs, getting lucky and, hey, joining in on a random meeting. The second one you could avoid with password protection. So I would strongly recommend implementing that if you're, don't want that to happen. It's not likely, but it's good protocol to do something like that. Likewise, if you are sharing that link to have other people join your meeting, like say we do here, where I had a meeting earlier today, be careful. Now, part of the security concerns with Zoom, and I'm still reading up on this myself, I think is with some of the encryption on Zoom, and that it's not as comprehensive as other clients. That's probably not something I can speak of quite as well. I'm still reading up on some of that. If that is a concern though, I'd continue reading up on it like I am now and having a look at it. There are other alternatives to Zoom that you can look at. I would flag that if total secure encryption is your thing, just double check with what Zoom are doing and if that complies with what your security policies are. I think we've got other privacy breaches of information being sent to Facebook now. I haven't heard this one myself yet, so I probably don't have a good answer for that one. I'd have to look into that, is the short answer. If you want, you can flick us through an email and I can have a look and see what we get into. I haven't heard that one yet though, but again, they did just release a patch yesterday, I believe. We just updated all of our clients ourselves. They did address some of these security concerns that are going around. So again, I do always recommend doing your research. Not that we don't try to as well, we do. But if you have got particular concerns around how your setup is and how the software is interacting, I do always recommend having a good look yourself, because no one knows your setup better than you do, or your IT person if they happen to be managing that on your behalf. So yeah, do have a look there. All right. Moving onwards here, Google for not-for-profits. So this is the other cloud suite solution that I alluded to earlier. So this is, again, a very popular one as well. There's a lot more to it than just the Google Cloud Suite, although that's probably the big draw there, is that you do get, as a not-for-profit, you do get Google's G Suite Basic program for free. So you'll be looking at things similar to Office 365. You'll get hosted email, only this is through Google. So again, you get that branded email. You do get storage with reasonably large inboxes. I want to say it's 30 gigabytes from memory, but you'd have to double check that. You get cloud file storage. Sorry, we're just getting something. There seems to be music behind the speaker's voice. I actually can't hear any music at the moment. I'm not running anything on my PC and my housemates are all gone, so hopefully that's going away for you. I can't hear that myself, so sorry. And we're getting some feedback that there's no music, so that might be on your end. Sorry about that. getting back into it now. So Google, so yes, I've talked about hosted email. You do get cloud file storage as well, so that's pretty good. You get that through Google Drive. Again, there are different storage limits. I can get back to you with specifics on that. Google also go through that as well. So there's a good bit you can do file storage. Google Drive also lets you share files too. It's not just personal file storage. So again, you can collaborate and share documents as needed through, again, a nice online document library, which is something you'll see come up a few times here. That is actually a really good way of sharing documents. You also get things like online messaging. You get Google Docs, so like your online spreadsheets, which we used to use a fair bit in the past. I'll admit we don't really use that at Connecting Up here, but I do know some of our colleagues at some of the other TechSoup countries around the world, they do use that. So certainly there's a lot there. Google Hangouts as well, so you can do conferencing and messaging through that. Again, more of that team-based communication. So that's just G Suite. The Google for Not-for-Profits program is much broader than that though, and you do get quite a bit more. So one of the big draws that a lot of people know about but don't necessarily use is that you get 10,000 US dollars a month of in-kind advertising for Google's text-based ads through their AdWords program. So if you are an eligible not-for-profit, you can really make good use of that. Now, the catch is that that can be somewhat complicated to run, and sometimes you'll need an expert to help out with that. But if you do have that expertise in-house, or you know someone that can help, that's really worth looking at. We've also got some contacts that can help with that, but that's a really powerful tool. And if you happen to be getting Google G Suite, then that's fantastic. You can apply for this. It's the same application. It's worth taking a punt at, because if you can get it up and running, it can be a huge boost to your organization, with the catch that you need to be able to get it up and running and know what you're doing with it. So there's a bit of a caveat there. You also get a YouTube nonprofit account, as well as some Google Maps platform credits if you happen to be using Google's Maps API on your website to do some funny things. Well, I say funny things, useful things, like, for example, tracking instances. Like, you can do cool stuff with maps and showing where people are getting help and service and things like that. There's more to it than that. Clever people than myself have done some really interesting things with that. You do get credits through Google anyways for using that, but as a not-for-profit, you can request more. So if you do happen to be using that, yeah, have a look. One of the questions we get asked a lot as well before I jump into the next product here is, which is better, Google for not-for-profits and G Suite Basic, or Office 365? And the short answer is that there really is no answer. It tends to be very particular to your situation. The advice that I would typically give is for people to consider what applications they're using and the kind of ecosystem that they're looking to build. If you already run a lot of Microsoft applications, or you're already planning to integrate a lot of Microsoft applications, I'd strongly consider Office 365. Vice versa for Google. Again, if you're not really living in the Microsoft world, say you're using a lot of open source applications, and you've already got people set up on Google, you're already using some of the other Google programs, you might want to continue on and make the shift over to Google. There are different things that they do, so you do have to keep that in mind. Sorry, you're going to hear the door in the background there as my housemates return. You can theoretically, and I do know some organizations have done this, mix and match the two different offerings. So I've known people that have gone with Office 365 largely, and then say use some of the Google AdWords components. Now that's, by and large, that works pretty fine, because they're not mixing the cloud suite of Office 365 with the cloud suite of Google G Suite Basic. Where it starts to get complicated is where you start to try to use G Suite or G Suite and Office 365 at the same time. That's where you start to run into issues with people using the same sorts of programs, like say maybe SharePoint Online and Google Drive, and you've got half of your office using Google Drive and half using SharePoint. That's the kind of situation you really want to avoid. So strongly consider your environment and what you want to do before you choose. And then obviously there are differences in terms of licensing, in terms of how much you can get access to. Again, the G Suite Basic program, it is just G Suite Basic that you're getting with Google for Not-for-Profits, whereas Office 365 has a much broader array of licensing that you can get, and different add-ons that you can plug in, especially if you're looking at using Azure, for example, for maybe like Active Directory Sync or any of the fancy things you can do through Azure. Again, Power BI, Flow, Power Apps. There's a bunch of other Microsoft add-ins that really integrate well or are available through that Office 365 environment. So if you're going to be using a large portion of those, I would have a look at that. But at any rate, like I said, it really does depend on your situation. I do know a lot of not-for-profits that use Google G Suite. It is a fantastic offer. Don't get me wrong, just strongly consider the pros and cons of either before committing. And yeah, I would try to avoid mixing and matching those when you can. All right, Asana. Now, Asana is a really cool piece of software here. It's project management software. Now, there is a lot of project management software out there. So Microsoft Teams, or Microsoft has what they call Planner, which you can use through Teams. There's things like Trello. Asana is similar in that sense, in that this is a piece of software you can use. You've got your users in your organization, and you're pretty much using it to map out projects and monitor your team workload, assign people tasks, monitor how far along they're doing in tasks, using subtasks. It's a really great tool for project management. We've used it ourselves. I'll do a little bit of a demo in a little while here just to show off what that can look like. But if you do have to be running a lot of internal projects, this is a really great way to manage those. So if you're struggling to, I guess, manage your workforce remotely and people are having issues with this, this could be a tool that could help with that. There is an offer through Connecting Up for this. Again, it's very similar to the Zoom offer where you pay us an admin fee and then you get 50% off of either the Premier Business plans with Asana directly. So we have got a pricing table for that. Now, one thing I didn't mention on the last slide for Google is how you can get that. The application for that is all straight through Google. So we've got links for that here. But at any rate, the Asana offer is quite good. I'll do a bit of a demo on how that project management software works, but it is pretty nifty. It is helpful for managing the team. We don't use it on a day-to-day basis, I'll be honest. We tend to save it for some of our larger projects that we've got, like the conference, for example. But for things like that, it really is a lifesaver. Box. Okay, so Box is another online file sharing application, and this is the other one that I mentioned earlier. So Box is dedicated. All they do, online file sharing. That's exactly what it is on the tin. Really, again, it's all about storing your documents and your sensitive information, again, in the cloud, not on some NAS or on someone's hard drive. It's up there, anyone can get it. Well, when I say anyone that you allow, so whether it's your colleagues or whether you're inviting external users and stakeholders, you can control who accesses that software. It does integrate with things like Office 365 and Google Docs. So if, for example, you were on Google's Cloud Suite solution or Microsoft's Cloud Suite solution, and you preferred using something like Box, you can. That's not a problem at all. I have mentioned in the slide here, if you're in Australia and you've got requirements on where your data needs to be hosted, Box they've got you covered. You can choose to store your files in their servers. I believe they've got those in Melbourne from memory. Unfortunately, that's not available in New Zealand. So if you're in TechSoup New Zealand, sorry about that. But for those of you who are in Australia, that'll work fine. Again, it's available through Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. You can get a perpetual, so it's not going to expire. 10 user license for a pretty small fee, as you can see there. And that's pretty much it. Now, we don't use Box, we do use SharePoint, but Box is a really good solution. There are, again, a lot of competitors out there beyond that, things like Dropbox and stuff like that. Box, like this is Box's Business Edition. It's solid, it's really good. You're not paying an ongoing subscription fee, you're paying a one-off 10-user license, so it is very cost-effective for what it is, and it is a dedicated solution, so you've got some pros to that. You can always get a trial for Box and try it out, and I guess as a bit of an aside, for those of you that are looking at a bunch of different remote work offers as people flood out offers of trials and extended free licenses for the next 3 months or 60 days, this is a really good opportunity to try a lot of what's out there and work out, okay, what's going to work for us? Because I mean, there is in some sense a time pressure to get things set up and get things up and running, but if you are going to commit to something, make sure you're committing to the right solution for you, because changing over can be costly and you'll be wasting a lot of time that perhaps you should have spent in the first place. So that would be my tip there. But again, Box is great and you can have a look at that. Now, I think this is one of the last of the team ones that we've mentioned here, and I'm a big fan of this. But so Slack have a great not-for-profit offer. They currently have it up and running. I think it's 3 months free for not-for-profits or organizations working directly in that COVID-19 space. Typically, the offer is that if you're less than 250 users, I believe it's free. If you're over 250 and you're not for profit, I think it's discounted by 85% for one of their pro workplace plans. But essentially, Slack is a team messaging and collaboration tool. So instant messaging, file sharing, sharing links, things like that. It sounds really simple. It is, but again, much like Zoom, Slack does this really well. You can chat with people through direct messages, you can chat in shared channels, you can make general channels, private channels, ad hoc groups, you can make calls through Slack. We were doing that just the other day. Quite easy, very convenient. Like I've mentioned, you can share files, you can integrate it with other software applications like Zoom or Google Docs. It is a really great tool. We've been using it for, I think, over 4 years now. It's very intuitive. It's easy to pick up. It's fantastic. If you're, sharing information, it's much faster, than sending an email, for an example. So if I've got a question that I need to ask one of my colleagues, bam, just ask them through Slack, get an answer, no dramas, problem solved. If we just want to have a bit of banter, share a bit of a laugh, no worries. Slack's the appropriate place for that. So it's been great for us over the past few weeks as we've sort of transitioned from having a nice open office and all the chat and banter that goes on there to trying to moving that online, which is it's all moved to Slack. So I'll do a little bit of a demonstration on Slack as well because we've used it and I think it's fantastic. TeamViewer. Now this is something that I know some of you might be very interested in, which is the challenge of providing tech support remotely. TeamViewer is fantastic at that. Now, again, there are a lot of different ways to get remote access to people's PCs and screens, but TeamViewer is really well known for this, and it is really quite good, especially the commercial license, which is what this is. So if you're in the position, or people in your organization are in the position where they're needing to help, basically they need to help troubleshoot someone's tech issues, and they need remote access to that PC to be able to do that, this is where TeamViewer can come in. So you can get a TeamViewer license to be able to work with up to a number of other employees in your staff and help troubleshoot those users. So I know a lot of people perhaps might have used the free TeamViewer licenses before. Generally speaking, if you're using it for commercial or organizational purposes, you do want a proper license for that, and that's exactly what this is. So you can get a donated license through Connecting Up, so you'll just have to pay that admin fee. So there's links to Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand there. There is also a discounted offer as well for people that need more than what the basic TeamViewer license offers, but it is a really great tool. We don't typically provide technical support at Connecting Up, although I have done so several times. I've done it different ways. I've done it through just over the phone, which is always really difficult. As you can imagine, it's very difficult to see what people are doing. I've done ad hoc technical support through Zoom, which is a little bit of a hacky workaround. It works, but again, it's a bit difficult because you don't have control. And I have done it through TeamViewer, and TeamViewer, it worked a treat. So if you are in the tech field, or if you know someone in your organization that's providing tech support to some of your other users that are working from home and they need assistance, need help on the PC, TeamViewer is the way to do that. Really, really good stuff. So as we're moving along here, anything else? Look, what I mentioned there is probably most of the team-based remote work software that we've got, where the focus is on, getting more than one user using that software for whatever reason, whether it's troubleshooting or talking to each other, sharing files, that sort of things. There is a lot more cloud-based software available through Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand. Admittedly, these programs tend to be on an as-needs basis by your staff. So the Adobe Cloud Suite, for example, you can get Adobe Cloud licenses. A lot of you probably already have them, or someone in your organization probably has them. Again, there's nothing too fancy about it. It's just that all the application, all the data, all the files and stuff they work on can be saved on the cloud. If they've got a cloud user license, for example, they can typically install the software on their home PC as well as their work PC, so they could access it from home, for example, as long as they're only using it on one PC at a time. Likewise, the Amazon Web Services credits are very similar to Microsoft's Azure credits. So again, you can do some funky hosting and storage and a bunch of other things with that. I won't get into that now. We'll be here all day. If you're looking at simplifying your accounting, MYOB have cloud accounting software. Calxa do budgeting and reporting software that you can get. And again, there's some cloud-based elements there. QuickTime is pretty cool. If you want to track employees' time on projects and things, that's what QuickTime's for. If you want to move your HR system, you can have a look at Flare HR. We've got CRMs like Little Green Light. You've got governance board management software through Process PA, which again can shift a lot of those meeting notes and things online. Again, really excellent solution. But some of this tends to be more tailored to people in their specific roles. So I haven't jumped into the specifics here. It is available on the website though. I'll show how our menus look like so you can find out where to navigate to it if you haven't seen it before. But there is quite a lot out there that you can still use and take advantage of if you've got workers that, hey, you know, I need this software, I haven't got the license, or the license I've got won't let me install it on my home PC. What should I do? Have a chat with us. We can work out what license may work for you there. All right, now credit where credit is due. This slide was something that our colleagues over at TechSoup Asia made. A couple of weeks ago, they did a very similar webinar to this to their audience, and they had this wonderful little table here that just compares some of the features from different products, some of which I haven't talked about, like DocuSign, for example. So basically, it's just what they do. For some of them, it's how much they cost. It's just there. I've copied it because it was such a great table. And as you've probably seen in this PowerPoint, graphic design is not my strong suit. It is a great table, though, that compares some of these real common programs and application suites with, you know, what it is they're actually doing and some of the pricing there. So just to touch on a couple that I didn't talk about. So DocuSign's an offer you could get through Connecting Up or TechSoup New Zealand. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's electronic document signature software. So if you've got the need for that, have a look at that. Canva Pro is not something you would request through Connecting Up or TechSoup New Zealand, but if you haven't heard of Canva, if you're looking for an alternative graphic design software that's really simple to use, very plug and play, Canva have. Now, again, we don't provide this offer, so this could be incorrect, but the last time I looked, I believe you could get free Canva licenses as a not-for-profit. Could be wrong, would recommend double checking that one. It's been a little while since I've checked that out, but for alternative design software that can be very simple to use, you could be about as good as graphic design as I am, and you could probably still make something that looks really slick through Canva, so have a look at that. AWS credits, I think I've mentioned. Raclette is one of the other donor management, CRM, constituent management software that you can have a look at there. Very powerful if you know what you're doing. If you're not looking for a CRM solution, probably not something I'd be looking at right now. But if you did want to shift some of that data over from, say, Excel spreadsheets, maybe something you should be looking at. Keen Tone have a wide variety of tools. I won't hop in too much to it now, but I will show where it is on the website if you want to have a bit of a look at that there. So growing conscious of time, as I wear my voice out very quickly in only 32 minutes here, I'll do a bit of a quick demo on what my work from home setup looks like so people can get a bit of an idea on what we've been doing. And I'll chat about how I ended up in this in the first place. So as I exit out my PowerPoint slide here, I will show off my screen. So this is my current work from home setup. So as you can probably see, it is a large black screen. It's not too exciting. Sorry, guys. I'll open up some web browsers in a second. But basically, this is my home desktop PC. Now, we do have work laptops that we use at Connecting Up. I've got a somewhat old Surface Pro right now, which I did take home with me along with all the appropriate cables and docking stations. So we were pretty well prepared. Unfortunately, when I got home and I was setting up to work from home the first morning, we came into the problem, which was that the Surface Pro that I've got doesn't output to the right resolution of the monitor that I'm using at home. Since I don't want to give myself eye strain for working for potentially months, with that, I decided, all right, I don't really want to go with this setup here. Let's see what I can do to shift over and get all of my work critical applications over on my home PC. Now, I will mention that that's not going to be something that's going to be applicable for everyone in every organization. I would flag that there are some security risks in terms of accessing, say, certain files, saving certain files, maybe working through a VPN. It really depends on how you've got your organization set up. But some of those things that I have got access to, like some of our financial files, that's okay for me to be accessing those working from home, but that may not be the same for your organization. So, what I've done here may not be applicable to everyone that's out there. Do check your company policies with what you've got around things like data loss prevention and file sharing, and who needs to be controlling what applications are set up on your PC. But thankfully, we are set up such that I can work from home relatively flexibly through my home PC. So that was really good. So that was concern number one. The second concern one, though, was how am I going to get all my software and all my bookmarks loaded up on my PC? And thankfully, that was pretty easy. So the first piece of software that I want to talk about that made this transition really possible, I mean, I got set up in less than an hour, is something I haven't talked about yet, which is actually password management software. So at Connecting Up, we use, and I've just shared all of my passwords now, not really. That was a brief look at our 1Password program, which I've not signed out of, so I won't show it again just because I don't want to show off all of my usernames there. The passwords are hidden, thankfully. But we use 1Password for password management software. Now, there are a lot of alternatives out there for those of you that might be looking on my screen. Here's Bitwarden, for example, which is open source, so it's free. I use that for my personal password management stuff, so I've got all of my private passwords on there, but we use 1Password at work. So 1Password had all of my login details to all the different applications that I would need to download or to websites that I might need to sign into. That's all there, no dramas. So as long as I've got the security code, which I do have, thankfully, and I remember my master password, which is the only real password I need to remember apart from a couple other master passwords, I can get into all of my applications, no dramas. So I'm not saving any of my passwords in my browser or anything like that. That's not really good security practice. And I'm not reusing passwords as well. They're all different, they're all good, and they're all strong passwords. So that was actually key number one, was using password management software so that I could get into different websites and different applications as I needed. The second step was, as you might imagine, getting Office installed on my PC. So we do use Office 365, like I mentioned. Now, admittedly, the particular license that we use for Office 365 is a license that I don't believe is generally available. I think it's been grandfathered in, so I won't talk too much about it. But suffice to say, we do get all the Office applications, and we do get the ability to install the desktop software. So this is a bit of a look at the home Office 365 portal. Obviously, you can't really see too much at the moment other than different price lists and spreadsheets. That's kind of what I've been working on over the last yesterday afternoon and this morning. It's been very exciting, as you can tell. But look, this is the Office 365 home portal. Theoretically, from here, I could access Outlook, so I could access all of my emails online. I could access my personal documents through OneDrive. Likewise, here's our business development SharePoint library that we've got, so I could access some of the BD team documents through SharePoint Online, which I'll talk about in a sec. I could also use the online version of all of these different web apps, including Teams or Yammer if I wanted to talk, and if I wanted to have a look at all the applications, I could do so. Now that's all well and good, but to be honest, I don't really care for using the online versions of Office myself when I've got the ability to click a button and install the Office applications. Now, admittedly, not all of the Office 365 plans do come with this feature. A lot of the free Office 365 plans won't let you do this. But like I said, our license will. So for me, all I had to do was click this button, download a file, troubleshoot my firewall, admittedly, because I was getting stuck with some of the installation process. But once that was resolved, we were able to get the Office apps installed on my computer. And if I want to have a look at Outlook or, for example, Excel, no dramas, here it is. Now I've got all of my Office applications running in dark mode because, as you can probably tell, I kind of like black. It's easy on the eyes. But if we're looking at Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Publisher, Access, Outlook, I've got all those applications installed on my PC. Admittedly, largely it is just me using Outlook or Excel. Those are probably the biggest two that I would use on a day-to-day basis, but I've got access to the rest of the suite as I need. So that was really good. And that in itself, if nothing else, would let me do pretty much everything I need to do. The other key thing I did when I set up was I've imported all of my work bookmarks, and I'm actually using Google Chrome, which is not typically the browser I would use. I'm a Firefox guy myself. I've used Pale before as well. That's kind of my preference as far as browsers go. But I did want to keep all of my work stuff separate to my personal stuff, so I decided, you know what, let's just shift to a totally different browser. It's just going to make it easier for me to manage. So I've imported all my bookmarks so I can still access our ticketing system. I can access all of my critical emails and all my applications like that. So by and large, I'm pretty much set up here. There were only a couple of extra things that I did. So on the Office 365 conversation, like I mentioned, we do use SharePoint. So we've got a number of different SharePoint sites. This, for example, is our business development one. So this mostly has financials and other reports, price lists, and things that we would access that I would typically use on a daily basis. So again, I can access this online, as can, say, our business development manager, Rob, or our marketing coordinator, Sam, or our boss, Pankesh. So any of us might need to be accessing any of these files on a day-to-day basis for whatever reason. No dramas, we can all access this here, and it really just functions like your standard online document library. Now, the cool thing with SharePoint, as well as your personal storage through OneDrive, is that you can sync those up so that they show up in File Explorer, which is what I've done here. So normally I would be using this obviously to access my standard desktop files that I've got here, but I have, through OneDrive for Business, synced my OneDrive as well as our business development SharePoint site so that I don't have to go online to access these. I just have to have OneDrive for Business running down in the corner here, and I can access all of our documents here, like, for example, these Acer product images. If I want to put, okay, mostly Acer, I lied, there's a few that aren't. But if I'm uploading content to the website, this is typically where I'll say product images, for example, by partner. If I need to access financial reports, I can do so in there, or important work documents. It really does make document management much easier. We moved to SharePoint and OneDrive probably about 2-3 years ago. Before that, we were using a local network drive. And to be honest, I'm really glad we moved to SharePoint because it made a transition like this much easier. Again, I can access all of my critical work documents because we save them in the cloud. I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm not actually using my work laptop. I can access all my important documents without that. That's a really, really strong advantage for moving to the cloud. Again, there are some concerns around document handling and file storage and security there, so that's not necessarily an appropriate setup for everyone. Again, it's going to depend on your company policy and risk management there, but it does work for us, and it's made my life much easier. Now, one of the other things I wanted to talk about, and I did promise I would do this, is Asana. So we use Asana for project management. So here's a bit of a look at it now. Hopefully you can see the screen and it's large enough to make out some of the text. It might be a little bit small. I apologize. The resolution's a little high on the monitor here. But for example, we've got like our conference team here. We've got our customer experience team. We've got our BD team. I've just selected one of the projects rather, that we were running in the business development team last year, which was just making sure that we were getting flyers organized for some of the conferences that we were attending so that we could have handouts for people, because people do still like that, surprisingly. We haven't gone totally green in that sense, I suppose. But essentially what you'll see here is what you'll see in a lot of project management software, which is your typical Kanban list. So it's pretty easy for me to say, make a new task here, move tasks across, assign tasks to different people. As you can see, all of these tasks were done by our marketing coordinator, Sam. So really, he did all the heavy lifting on this project. But theoretically, we could look at this. So we've got the different email and the context, who it was assigned to, when it was done. I could add or remove different collaborators to work on it. I could add subtasks to the task. If there were dependencies that that task was involved on, we could copy the task link and send it through to people. If I was creating a task and I made a new one and I'd assigned it to, say, Sam or myself, they'd get an email notifying them that they had a new task here. Again, it's not something we use on a day-to-day basis, but for project management like this, for example, or for things like our conference or like the website refresh, where we've got broader projects that we need to track, as well as some tasks that maybe aren't day-to-day but are critical in following up on, or dependencies, this is really good. There are admittedly a lot of different project management tools you can look at. Like I said, we really like Asana, but you can use Microsoft Planner. We've used that for a long time, and I quite like that as well. I know a lot of people use Trello. You can use Zoho. There's a bunch out there. Like I mentioned, it's a bit like the password management tools, right? Like I mentioned, I'm running 2 on this PC. There's a bunch out there. Some of it you can pay for, some of it's open source. Now's a really good time to look at what's out there, have a solid look at it, and go, right, what would fit us? If you have got the luxury, try different things out. And speaking of trying different things out, here's Teams. Now, Teams admittedly is not something we use so much at the Connecting Up office. Our colleagues in Info Exchange in Melbourne, they use that in the Melbourne office quite a lot, as well as in Brisbane. But we have been using Slack and Zoom for so much longer, as well as other bits of software, that we really haven't made the move across to Teams yet. I imagine we will at some point, but for now we're still using different bits and pieces. But as you can see, Teams is here. Now I won't do a comprehensive overview on Teams because I really haven't used it all that much and I'm not an expert. Thankfully, there's a great Teams webinar that's coming up just on Thursday, I believe. I'll double check that and tell me if I'm wrong, Tina. But it's being facilitated by Microsoft, so they really are the experts on that. It's going to be a good overview of the product, so if you want to have a look and you're interested in using Teams, show up to the webinar on Thursday. Trust me, it'll be good. But like I said, you can do things like chat. You've got different teams here. As you can see, we've got a whole bunch here like conference, annual planning, grants and sponsorship, webinars, customer experience. There's my Outlook calendar. Let's not look at that for too long. Different contacts who I could be calling, whether or not they're available or not is a different matter. Again, we don't really use Teams too much. Files, so we could share different files here. You're just going to see a bunch of recent files I've accessed, which again are largely Word documents and price lists. I've had an exciting day and a half. But Teams is a really powerful tool. We could do video conferencing through here. It really fits everything all in one. It's great. I imagine if we hadn't been using some of the technology setup that we've been using for so long, like if we were starting out fresh, there's a really good chance we'd just be using Teams. So I do strongly recommend checking out that webinar on Thursday if you're not already using Teams, just to get an idea on whether or not it'd be a good fit. It's definitely worth checking out. All right, sorry, I'll just have to clear my breath here, clear my voice rather. I've been talking nonstop for a little while and it's starting to have a bit of a wear. I don't normally talk for so long. Just to cover a few extra bits and pieces of different software that we used, I did mention that we use Slack, which I've kept off during this presentation just to avoid getting notifications because we use it quite a lot. And as I switch Teams to myself, all right, here we go. Not sharing too many messages here. So this is Slack. Again, I have it set up in dark mode, surprise, surprise. But look, it is a messaging tool. It is really great. We've been using it for a long time. Just as a bit of a quick overview, we've got different channels here, which is pretty much either you've got your locked channels, which are generally invite only. We've got your general channels, which most people can attend. You've got your direct messages. You've got ad hoc groups, for example, this group with Sam and Rob and myself. So we can just have ad hoc group chats. If I want to chat with my colleagues over in TechSoup, they've got their own Slack instance and I can contact them, even if they're offline because they're based in the United States, for example. No dramas. We'll just have a bit of a chat. They'll get the message notification and email. If I want to share files with some of my colleagues, not a problem. Open up my file explorer, navigate to the file. I can drag and drop that uploads the file straight through Slack. Quickly share a spreadsheet, no dramas. If I want to share video links, no dramas. It'll recognize the link that's a video. It'll embed it straight away. I can just play it through Slack. It is, again, it's a messaging tool, but if you're not using a messaging tool, like an online messaging tool in your organization and need to chat a lot, have a look at something like this. It really is a game changer. We use this pretty much all day, every day. Whether it's for, again, some of the banter and stuff that we're missing out in the office because we're not there to talk to each other, or probably more likely for important work events like, hey, Eric, I've got a client on the phone. I need an answer for this. What's the deal? All right, yeah, no worries. Here's it is. Or vice versa. Hey, I've got someone asking about this. Do you know what the deal is? Yep, no worries. Here it is. Don't have to stick to email. Get an answer immediately. There's not much to say. I think pretty much everyone's pretty familiar with instant messaging, but it really is great. I love Slack. It's been a great tool for us. As you can see, I've had 67 messages, so God knows what's been going on in the last 50 minutes since I started this webinar, but hopefully things aren't on fire. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's probably mostly just memes. At any rate, let's quit out of, so I try and quit out of Slack there so we don't get spammed by notifications. Cool. The last thing I wanted to show off, and not entirely, was Zoom. So this is the Zoom user interface after you sign in. Nothing too fancy, but if I wanted to join a meeting, I could do so. If I wanted to spin up a new meeting, I could. If I wanted to schedule a meeting, I could do that through Outlook, through Google, or through your standard .ics file invite. If I wanted to set up a Zoom meeting, I could share my screen. You can obviously share audio, share voice. it really is easy. You click a few buttons, you can set up a meeting, you can set up, like I mentioned, some of that password protection stuff. You can schedule, you can do chat through Zoom. We kind of don't, we've got different tools for that, but hey, it's available. It's very simple to use, and it works really well. The compression algorithm that Zoom uses is fantastic. I've had probably hundreds of Zoom meetings at this point since we started using it. I think I've had an issue with delayed audio and sort of fuzzy video image, which we used to get with Skype for Business quite a lot. Probably none since, like I said, probably maybe once or twice. It's simple to use. The compression algorithm is good. Like I said, there are concerns around it recently, so I would pay attention to some of those. It is worth having a look at that, but we do still quite like Zoom, and it is dead easy. It's very easy to get external people in on your meetings. I've used it with clients before and it's gone swimmingly. So hey, it's a great piece of software. That's not to say that there aren't alternatives though. If you have a look at my icons here, I've got some of the Citrix stuff installed, or it used to be Citrix. I think it's now LogMeIn, which is the GoToMeeting software and the GoToWebinar software. Now, admittedly, GoToWebinars to help run this today, but GoToMeetings, another good meeting client you could use. Cisco, WebEx, we have someone else that used that. I'll admit I'm not the biggest fan myself, but hey, it's not bad, and it is available. It's something you can use. We've used it with some of our other vendors before, and it does the job. There's a lot out there. There is Microsoft Teams. Admittedly, that's only there because I installed the Office suite. We don't really use Teams ourselves, but hey, if we want to do a voice call through that, we could even do it through Slack. There's so many different options out there for voice calling or for video conferencing. Do have a look and make sure you're getting the software that is right for you. One last thing I wanted to show off, or a couple of last things. So there's a link to this in the slide deck that I'll share, but our marketing coordinator, Sam, has been putting together a couple of tech resources pages. This is for TechSoup New Zealand. This is for Connecting Up, which really just talks about all the different offers of products and services that are available. Some of them are through Connecting Up, some of them aren't. Like Atlassian, for example, LogMeIn, Manage Engine, I know have an offer right now for trial licenses and different licenses you can get for 60 days, 90 days, that sort of things. There are a lot of offers out there from different vendors at the moment for their software, really for situations like this, some of them for not-for-profit specifically, some of them for the general public. So some of the better ones that we see, we've been compiling on this list here. We've also been keeping a list of other training information and other resources you can have a look at too. So do check these out. We've got big sliders on our website, so it's pretty hard to miss the links to these, but it is a really good source of information on what we're doing, as well as some good stuff we're seeing out there that can benefit the sector. So do have a bit of a look at that. Now, the other thing I mentioned that I would share is the links on our website to look at some of the other products I mentioned, like some of the Adobe stuff. So some of you have probably been on the website before. I won't spend too long on it, but if you haven't spent too much time, or you need a bit of a refresher because you're not here all the time, which is fair enough, it's not the smoothest website. We've got a refresh coming soon, but for those of you that need to browse it in the very near future, essentially if you hover over the products heading there, you can click on discounted, which is where it defaults to, which is all of our local discount programs that we've worked with different vendors here in Australia or New Zealand to acquire. Or you can click on donated to get to the TechSoup donation program stuff, which for a lot of you would know that for maybe the Microsoft stuff or some of the other offers that we've talked about, like Zoom or Asana. That stuff all lives here, as well as things like Adobe. We've also got links to servers, as well as some of these events and webinars, which we'll be talking about as well. One of the other things that you can look at, which is going to be of interest here, is, now, this did only launch in Australia, although if you are from New Zealand, there's no worries. You can still access the course here. You'll just need to register on the Australian website. It's no big deal. But we have been working with TechSoup to prevent some of the online self-paced learning courses that they've got available. So you've got Microsoft courses, you've got TechSoup courses. One thing I wanted to highlight in this webinar is that there's a specific COVID-19 response course track for not-for-profits that's available that includes some coronavirus specific learning things, as well as bits on like OneDrive, Outlook, SharePoint, getting started with Teams, things like digital security. Normally a lot of these courses would cost money. Right now they're all free. So if you want to have a bit of a look at that, head to the website here. It is on Connecting Up. If you hover over events and online courses, there's a link to it. I believe I've also got a link to it in the slide deck so you can check it out. But if you are a fan of self-paced learning, or you want to flick this through to the rest of your organization, if they want to have a look, you can have a look at this. It's a great course, even if you're only taking a couple of these because maybe it's just SharePoint that interests you. No dramas, you can have a look around, do this in your own time. It is pretty cool. Alrighty, so I realize I've been talking quite a lot for quite a while, and my voice is starting to give out. There's not too much left to cover. So look, here's some of the upcoming COVID-19 specific webinars that are coming up that you might be interested in attending. So tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, if you're in New Zealand, there's a webinar by LogMeIn that's being basically the topic as it says there, everything you'll need for a seamless transition to remote work. So again, our webinar here obviously was really product focused. If you know what products you want or have a better idea now, but you want to know, okay, cool, I know what tech products I have, how do I get everything over there? Go to that webinar tomorrow morning. It's going to be good. LogMeIn had really good feedback for the last webinar they did on LastPass. So if that's anything to go by, this should be a really good one as well. Now, Microsoft, I mentioned they had that Teams webinar coming up on Thursday afternoon. So they have got a webinar transitioning to remote work, Teams Quick Start, that is again being presented by Microsoft. It's going to be this Thursday. Check it out. That should be good. Later this month on the 17th of April, which is a Friday, you've got how to optimize your digital events in a time of digital crisis, which is being presented by Nation Builder. And then the IT team, who have done several webinars for us now, are doing yet another one, another fantastic webinar on key security measures for NFPs implementing remote work, which is something I've talked a little bit about here today. I've also mentioned there's that link to that course, which is on that learning management system. So there's a link handy for you to access that there. Otherwise, resources, there's links to that resource page, which I was just sharing on the browser there. So again, you can share that around. And if you have any questions on anything that I've talked about today, general support questions, or if you need to access some of that, contact our fantastic customer support team. They can really help you out with that. There's the phone number, there's the email addresses. Admittedly, we are getting a lot of inquiries at the moment, so if you aren't getting a response straight away, hang tight. It's very busy. It is for myself as well. So if you haven't heard from me recently, I will get back to you, I promise. There's just been a lot of work that's being done at the moment. Finally, there's my contact information here. There is my landline phone number. You can call that. That'll redirect to me. No dramas. Likewise, there's my email address. So feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. Now, as you can hear from my voice, that's pretty much it. I'm done with the webinar. It looks like we haven't got any questions at the moment. If you have got any questions that come to mind later, send them through to events@connectingup.org. Likewise, if you have any feedback, that'd be fantastic. I'll be totally honest. I'm really green when it comes to presenting webinars. I've done maybe 2 or 3 before in my life. I do maybe 1 or 2 a year. So presenting is not something I do a lot. So if you have got any feedback for me, I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great afternoon. Stay safe, stay well. Again, if you've got any questions, let us know. Otherwise, yeah, have a great time and make the most of it. We'll catch you next time, folks. See ya.